Afternoon, everyone. Here's a look at how things are looking for the next week, and certainly after the colder weather we saw last week and the settled, frosty, sunny days many of us saw, things have changed this week. We're back to a more unsettled pattern, but certainly things will be turning a lot milder as we go through towards the weekend as we pull in a very mild southwesterly flow. More of that in a moment, but here's a look at things for the next 12 to 24 hours. This is how things are looking just now on the rainfall radar. This is a snapshot from about 4 p.m. today. You can see we've still got these showers affecting the eastern side of Aberdeenshire down through Angus, Fife, southern Perthshire, the parts of East Lothian as well into the borders. These have been relentless through today and given a really quite miserable wet day here today. And these showers are moving away, but you notice out to the west, the next area of rain coming in, and that's going to be causing a bit of a headache over the next 24 hours, just how far north this rain band gets. So we look at the temperatures for them at the moment. This is the figures taken at 4 o'clock today. You can see it's rather chilly. We've got clearer skies across northern parts of the Highlands. As you can see here, we're down to freezing inland, and also clearer skies across the west. Temperatures again down near freezing across parts of Lochaber. And it's going to be quite a cold night tonight. We see these showers and cloud across the east move away, and then we've got like a bit of clearer spot, as you can see. Now this is the chart for 6 p.m. A few showers still across the west. You notice this rain band coming in from the west associated with this area of low pressure. We've got a drier interlude here. And as we start to see the cloud thin and break a bit more, we'll see quite a widespread frost developing, especially inland, but also across some of the isles as well, particularly inland. I think we could see a few icy patches develop as well, just as these temperatures start to drop, and we've got quite damp surfaces. But later in the night, you can see what happens. This area of low pressure starts to move in. The associated rain band starts to move in across the southwest. That's the situation at midnight. Then overnight, the rain band starts to move northwards. But you can see it never really reaches the far north. That's a picture at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. So I'll just rewind to 6 a.m. You can see at 6 a.m. we're expecting the rain to be stretching from Aberdeenshire across the Cairngorms, the Great Glen, maybe just about catching Inverness, across the Skye and areas to the south. You see really quite a wet night as you get further south through the central belt into the south. Some quite heavy rain, a little bit of snow on the higher ground. That's the purple there. Maybe some wintry, some sleety sort of wet snow down to about 300 meters, but main snow will be on the higher ground. But as you can see further north, just a scattering of showers coming in across the east coast and the Northern Isles, with much of the northwest Highlands and the Western Isles managing to stay dry. Now, there's a bit of uncertainty about the exact northern extent of the rain band. Some computer models do take it further north, others keep it further south. So I've gone for what I think is probably the happy medium. This is the general opinion between the models, what I'm sort of expecting to happen. So I think that's probably the spot where the rain will be by 6 in the morning. But of course, it's been a cold night, as I mentioned, so we could see some of this rain falling onto frozen surfaces. So that could cause some icy conditions for a time later tonight and through tomorrow morning. So just be aware of that if you're out and about. Also tonight, the southeasterly wind will pick up. We've got the low pressure over Ireland, winds blowing anti-clockwise around the low pressure. So it's a southeasterly wind, quite strong, I suspect, across the east coast and also across the northwest Highlands and the Western Isles, seeing quite a strong east to southeasterly wind by tomorrow morning. Now, as we go into Wednesday itself, you can see this is a situation. We've got this low pressure system sat over Wales, tracking east to England. Wrapped around it is this band of rain. It's going to be quite relentlessly wet again across the eastern side of the country. This is the situation at noon. You can see this band of rain stretching across much of the country. Really, the far south turning drier, the far north and the Northern Isles and Western Isles just seeing a scattering of showers, really. Again, missing the worst of it. They're quite windy as well, quite strong east and northeasterly wind blowing through that range. It's going to feel really quite raw tomorrow, quite a miserable day. So that's the 12 o'clock picture. As you can see, by 3 o'clock, the rain just starts to become more confined to the east. And then by 6 o'clock, it's just these eastern areas, really, from the borders up through Lothian, Fife, southern and eastern Perthshire, Angus, Aberdeenshire, and perhaps southern parts of Moray and maybe the Cairngorms as well, quite wet, with quite heavy, persistent, wetting rain, really quite miserable day. A strong easterly wind blowing, making it feel really quite cold. Further north, as you can see, scattered showers coming in off the Seine to the Moray Firth into towards Inverness, up through east to Ross, up towards eastern Sutherland and Caithness, and some across the Northern Isles. But you can see further west, it becomes drier, many places towards western coast and across the Isles, all the way down to Dumfries and Galloway and Ayrshire. It'll be drier for the afternoon, 1 or 2 bright spells, as you can see, developing, mainly across the northwest Highlands, maybe Western Sutherland, maybe Skye, the Western Isles, seeing some brighter spells through tomorrow afternoon. But it's going to be quite a cold day tomorrow. Maximum temperatures under the range, just probably 3 to 5 degrees. These western areas in the brightness we may just up on 8 to 9 degrees, but it's generally quite a cold night for many of us tomorrow day, and into tomorrow night as well. Now, as we go into Tuesday night into Wednesday, you can see the rain band eventually pulls away south, but by 3 in the morning, it's still pretty wet across the borders, eastern Aberdeenshire, down through East Lothian and Fife as well. But you can see elsewhere it's turning drier. And eventually, by the time we get through to Wednesday morning, the last of that rain just about pulling away down into northern England, but still some showers, as you can see, look, just affecting that east coast. But elsewhere, Wednesday morning, it's largely dry with light winds with a very weak ridge of high pressure, so not too bad. And in fact, Wednesday itself's looking like a decent day. We're in between systems. We've got this one weather system here down to the south pulling away. We've got another system coming into towards the northwest. So in the afternoon, we'll see the southwesterly wind start to increase across the northwest, basically north and west of the Great Glen, really turning cloudier, windier, and there'll be some scattered showers just starting to push in ahead of that main band of rain. And then by the time we get through Wednesday night, that rain band, as you can see, pushes across the country. Before that happens, though, skies will be quite clear. So I'm expecting quite a cold evening, I think, on Wednesday, and certainly the first part of the night. Really quite cold, I think, east and south of the Great Glen, through the Cairngorms, Aberdeenshire, Moray, down through Perthshire, into the central belt and down in towards the south. Quite a widespread hard frost developing through the evening on Wednesday, and at first overnight. But later on, we see this rain band coming from the west. The rain could well turn to snow for a time, particularly over higher ground, maybe some too low levels across Aberdeenshire and the Cairngorms. But generally speaking, it's going to be turning quite wet. A strong south to westerly wind, turning more westerly later. You can see this rain band pushes through overnight. By the time we get to first thing on Thursday, the rain band's out of the way. The winds are going to the west, and we're bringing showers in to these western areas. Some of these quite heavy with hail and a bit wintry over the hills. But it turns dry, as you can see, further east as this main rain band eventually departs into the North Sea. And Thursday itself, really, it's going to be quite windy, a brisk west to northwesterly wind, quite strong across the west. That's going to bring quite a number of showers to these western coasts and the Isles, some along the north coast and across the Northern Isles as well. But for many places, I think further east, it'll be a dry day, some decent spells of sunshine, especially towards the east coast. I think the eastern side of Aberdeenshire, all the way down through eastern parts of Aberdeenshire, like I said, down towards Fife, Angus, Lothian and the borders. Really quite sunny, I think, on Thursday, and certainly staying dry. Whereas further west, there'll be quite frequent showers, I suspect. It'll be feeling quite chilly in that wind on Thursday. Temperatures in the range of around 5 to 9 degrees. So around average for the time of year, but I think in the wind it'll feel quite cold. And we keep that pattern going really overnight, Thursday, as we get through to Friday. You can see it's very similar. We've got higher pressure building down to the south and low pressure to the north. So we've got this broad southwesterly flow across the country, bringing a lot of cloud. There'll be some brighter spells, I think, towards the east and the northeast, maybe Caithness, northeast Aberdeenshire, maybe the borders, Fife, seeing some brighter spells, but generally fairly cloudy conditions as we go into Friday, with quite a number of showers, outbreaks of drizzly rain across these western areas, blowing across the Northern Isles as well, as you can see. So quite a cloudy day on the whole on Friday. Like I said, very limited brightness, and that will be across the northeast. And then as we go through the course of Friday, we continue with the showers, and then later in the day we see a band of more persistent rain reach the west. As we go through the middle part of the afternoon, it probably turns quite wet, quite drizzly, fog over the hills across these western areas, and that rain band moves northeastwards. You can see it's quite fragmented. There'll be very little rain, I think, across the northeast and down the eastern side, but further west, some quite heavy bursts of rain, and certainly a very windy day on Friday. A strong southwesterly wind, gales across western areas, western coast, across the Isles, running across the Northern Isles as well. Really quite a windy day on Friday, as we've got this very broad southwesterly flow. And we do keep that flow going over the weekend. Well, that's the situation overnight, Friday into early Saturday. You can see very similar situation. Sorry, if I move that back. Very similar situation. Strong southwesterly wind feeding across the country. Cloudy skies, very limited, if any, brightness. And these outbreaks of rain and drizzle, particularly across the west. But we'll get a few bursts running further east at times. But you can see it's mainly these western areas, and particularly the northwest, which sees most of the rain and drizzle through Saturday. Really quite miserable. Fog over the hills. But it will be fairly mild. We'll go on to that in a minute. But you can see that situation through Saturday, and then as we go into Sunday, much the same really. In fact, if anything, the rain turns quite heavy across the Northwest Highlands, stretching into Orkney, as you can see, sky in the Western Isles, whereas elsewhere, further east and south, it's cloudy skies, bits and pieces of light rain and drizzle. But again, it's windy. Maybe not just as windy as it was on Saturday, but it's still quite windy. But as I say, it's going to be turning milder. I'll show you the air mass across the UK this week. That's the situation on Monday. You can see we've got this cold air to the north, still a lot of cold air. Scandinavia still freezing, Eastern Europe, and you can see there's low pressure to the south. We're just pulling in just some of this cold air from the east on those easterly winds as we go through Tuesday. But you can see on Wednesday, it's still cold. That cold air, if anything, sinks down across the country on Wednesday. Really quite chilly, I think. But then it starts to change. As you can see, to go towards the end of the week, we've got this high pressure building down here over Biscay. And what that does, it starts to draw up this very mild air from all the way down towards Bermuda. You see, it comes across the Atlantic. So you can see on Friday, look, and Saturday, we've got the greens across the country. It's turning milder. And Sunday situation, you can see then by Monday, we've got this really mild air stretching all the way across the country. So it's going to be a mild weekend. Temperatures for many places in double figures over the weekend. We could see parts of northeast Aberdeenshire see maybe sort of 13 or 14 degrees, and certainly by Monday, very mild indeed. We could see 15 across the northeast. So it's a mild situation. You can see her on the feature again. You can see this milder air starting to push its way in from the southwest through the weekend, and certainly by this time next week, it's looking very mild. Doesn't last very long. This high pressure system eventually will start to pull away back south again, and then we start to let the low pressure systems back in again. And then we're just alternating really between mild and cooler. You know, this is a nose of milder air which pushes east. We get the colder air coming in behind a band of rain, and then we end up with the milder air coming back in again. So it's just one of these situations where we're flip-flopping between cold or colder and milder conditions. But certainly looking further ahead towards the Christmas period, there's no real signals of any significant cold. We'll see some short bursts of colder conditions. You can see that's the situation. Look, next Tuesday, you can see we've got this colder air just spreads down across the country very briefly. It's got high pressure building across the Atlantic. But generally, the trend is, you know, these short blasts of cold. There's one look, that's middle of next week potentially. But looking out towards the Christmas period, it's just really a mixed pattern with bands of rain and strong winds moving west to east across the country, separated by colder conditions. Like we've got one here, look, with wintry showers at times and night frosts. But it's not long before we see the return, look, of milder air coming in. So it's a really changeable pattern, alternating between colder couple of days and then milder days as well. So certainly no sign of any real significant cold weather at the moment between now and Christmas. It's an unsettled pattern with showers or longer spells of rain interspersed by brighter showery conditions with patchy night frosts. Okay, folks, well, thanks for watching. Hope that keeps you updated for the week ahead and the weekend. Bye for now.